All right. So I'm Leo Brady with AMovieGuy.com. I'm here with Steve Basilone. It's so great to have you here with me. We're talking about his his adorable, fantastic new film, Long Weekend. Steve, thanks for being with me today.
Of course, man. Thank you for using such kind adjectives. I'll take that.
Yeah, well, and you before we got started here, you talked a little bit about where you were from. You said you
Mhm.
grew up in Pittsburgh, and I know you went to Emerson College. Um,
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about sort of maybe just growing up, a little bit of the things that sort of inspired you to get into writing and being a director of movies?
Um, I think my dad was I mean, both my dad and my mom were both huge movie buffs.
Yeah.
So, that was always, Friday night when I was a kid, you'd get out of swim practice and then you get pizza and then you go to the movie store and you'd rent three movies, two for you, one for mom and dad. You'd watch both of them, you'd go to bed, and then you get up at like 7 the next morning and watch them again. So that was
Even
just
if they
like
were
always
good,
routine.
you're bad.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
and then I was also an only child, so I was like a bit of a latchkey kid. So I wasn't a voracious reader as a child. I got into reading more. I was like I like Calvin and Hobbes when I was young, and that's kind of it.
Yeah.
But I always watch just everything that was on TV. Like if it was Nick at Night, like I'll watch Dobie Gillis and Welcome Back, Kotter. I'll also watch the entire run of Night Court and Herman's Head and whatever other bad bullshit's out there. So
Yeah.
I just did that all the time. And the same thing with movies. So I think it was just kind of ingrained in me. And it was from an early age, just instilled like, yeah, like the first movie I ever saw in a theater was Return of the Jedi. And I was two. And my
Sweet.
parents, my dad, my mom and dad both said that, like, we expected we were going to have to leave. And they went to their very last minute. So they figured they'd wait as long as they could before I had a meltdown and tantrum. So we're sitting in the very first row. And like, that's never a great movie going experience for a big action movie.
Right.
They said I was just like the entire time I was like just like transfixed by these Muppet puppets laser light show on screen. So
Awesome.
um I don't know, it was just always baked in there.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I mean, and then let's talk about, we'll get right into sort of this movie. I adored the film, but I sort of wanted to know where this, just writing the script and where the idea came from exactly, of just how this concept was going to be about, a guy meeting a girl and the girl being from the future.
Well, I had a bad peyote trip once, and no, it was just kind of it was birthed out of a place. Bart's character is very much like a conduit for my experience in my life. I was sick for most of my 20s. I had this chronic illness, and then that culminated with me having my colon removed, and then shortly thereafter, had a relatively public divorce, and then my grandmother died, and then my mother was dying, and all while this is all in a couple of years. All while this was happening, uh, I similarly to Bart, like met a woman when I was like really down in the dregs, really like just like, oh man,
Yeah.
I don't know how much more of this I can handle. And
Yeah.
it was just this like beautiful cathartic experience of just like, even in the midst of all this darkness, still found this like beacon of light. Even though it was just like frivolous and fun and silly, it was like friendship and a release. So
Yeah.
that's kind of where this whole thing came from. The notion of like, even in our most tumultuous times, you can find calm and peace, and like how we just need each other, and like how you know, uh, a chance encounter at the right time, fated or not, can like almost quite literally save your life. So
Yeah.
that's where it was all birthed from.
Yeah. That's awesome. I mean, well, and what I even like really loved about it more, I mean, you talk about like sort of the things that happened to you leading up to you be able to like write this screenplay. But what I loved about it is you get like the romance right. And when I watch like romantic movies or movies that are about like two people falling in love or creating a relationship, it's a fine line. We all know it's a fine line of getting it too cheesy or too melodramatic where you're not believing it anymore. But you hit it just right. Now, can you tell me, you know, how did it come out writing it in terms of the romance part? of making sure that everything that was written on the page was like, all right, that's honest. That would be said. These are the way these characters would feel in these moments.
It's a little bit trial and error, but I think more. I mean, I love a cheesy rom com, right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
that's not. I think they're wonderful and amazing. Like I think Adam Sandler's Click is great, and
Yeah.
I'll die on that hill. Like I
Yeah.
know it's like, yeah, he farts in David Hasselhoff's face, but it's also God, it's
Right.
also about like just compromise and missing your life and just all about perspective and the things you should be grateful for.
Yeah.
So I love all those movies, but the rom-coms that really respond, which kind of click falls in this territory as well, are there like, Eternal Sunshine and Groundhog Day and
Yeah.
Stranger Than Fiction, About Time, even definitely maybe kind of with like more of a hook. Like
Yeah.
the ones like, a man and a woman meet and we don't like each other at first, but over time we're gonna slowly, and those are like lovely. They're wonderful, but
Yeah.
that's not what I respond to most. So I wanted to do something that felt like a familiar story, but had a bit of a twist. And then, like for me, like the high water mark for just like uh, essentially a rom com that's really just a character study is all like the Linklater Before Sunrise, Sunset, and Sunset especially.
Yeah.
So that's what I was kind of that was kind of what I was aiming for. That was the bullseye of just like really doing a movie that's just about two people talking and getting to know each other. And I think you needed to live in Bart's headspace. You need to fall in love with this other character, Vienna, and there's a reason why she's named Vienna. That's like definitely an homage to Before Sunrise.
Yeah.
Uh, but you need to live in his headspace and like kind of fall in love with this woman and go be all in, even if it's illogical.
Right.
Because if you're with him in that, then the movie kind of works, and if you're not, then it's just falls flat in its face.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, and you talk about those two lead characters. I want to talk about Finn Wittrock and Zoe Chow. I mean, both of them are just absolutely charismatic, and they've got great chemistry. Now, it's sort of a bit of a two-part question. Were they your first choices for these two leads, and did you approach directing them and their characters differently, or was it just all three of you? Was it just a triangle of you guys getting on the same page?
Um, a couple of things. I was fortunate enough in this movie that like got to work with just a lot of friends.
Yeah.
Like everybody the supporting characters. Jim Rash, I worked with on Community, Casey and Damon on Happy Endings, Wendy McClendon Covey on Goldbergs, even Andy Secunda, the bank manager, was a buddy I wrote with forever on the Goldbergs. So that was like lovely and so comforting to have like people like, okay, I know these guys are going to take whatever I wrote and just make it exponentially funnier because they're
Yeah.
just the most talented. And Damon, holy shit,
Oh my
he,
God.
yeah, I mean, he's always the funniest. We all know that, but
Right.
dude acts his face off. He's so good
Yes.
and so nuanced and reserved. And even though he's all these dramatic things, he just still brings all this levity. So
Yeah.
that was great.
Yeah.
But and Zoe, I knew in passing from friends of friends and stuff.
Yep.
But as soon as she auditioned, I was like, done.
Yeah.
It's we're done here. And I was fortunate enough to have like a couple of people like wanting the role.
Yeah.
In whatever metrics, having done more stuff, some nice fancy folks, and
Yeah.
it was lovely to have that. But like Zoe is just, I think she's just an ace and so charming and amazing.
Yeah.
Now, the point of all this is Finn is the only person that I didn't know. I knew him um, from like Big Short and Beale Street and stuff like that. But
Yep.
fun fact, don't like scary stuff. It's just not my bag. I don't
Yeah.
do it. So like
Yeah.
the American Horror, like I knew him, and I had friends who knew him from Juilliard and stuff, so I knew him, but I didn't know like his real like tumultuous getting into it Emmy nominated work.
Right.
But as soon as I met him, he was just so easy and so charming and had a couple of good questions and was just a real partner. And the first time I had a chemistry read with the two of them, I was like, I think this is gonna be good. And the first day they were on set, it was their second day of shooting. As soon as I think the first scene we did with the two of them was like doing some stuff in the bedroom, like some of the kind of more cutesy stuff, like
Yeah.
montage kind of. And I
Yeah.
was like, oh fuck, I think this is gonna work because they are
Yeah.
so good. Because like everybody on set, producers and gaffers, and everybody was like falling in love with them. A couple was they were getting to know each other,
Yeah.
and So yeah, I mean, it was just such a joy to have both of them. You know, initially I was trying to cast the whole thing up with all friends.
Yeah.
That doesn't always work because you know people fall in and fall out. But I think everything just fell exactly where it's supposed to because I think Finn comes from such a place like he's Juilliard trained, so like his gravitas and his dramatic acting is so on point.
Yeah.
But he also is like I started referring to him as like comedic tofu because like
Yeah.
who you put him with, he like rises to that and takes that on and brings that energy, and he's just so facile. So
Yeah.
just was very fortunate to have all of them who are so much more talented than me making me look better.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, and you kind of stole my thunder talking about Damon. I mean, gosh, I like think he is absolutely spectacular in this role. Like he just like maybe it's just because you're not expecting it, but he balances the humor with the gravity of like life in
Mm-hmm.
in his moments and having those his character having conversations with the Bart character. But did he sort of inject that comedy himself? Were you worried about keeping it light and adding your own like sense of humor, or you do have a great supporting cast of people who have been in comedy? So did you just say to them like, "Hey, do your thing, be funny if you want to ad lib a little bit"?
No, I mean, I think I wasn't very precious about, you know, the words necessarily. I mean, it's the nice thing of being both the writer and the director. You can just kind of be like, yeah, this is important. We need to say this. Otherwise,
Right.
because you know, especially when Casey and Damon have such a shorthand when they were playing, it was just electric and so fun.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, I don't know if you remember, there's a Soderbergh movie called The Informant that came out like I don't know,
Yeah.
12 years ago.
Yeah. Matt Damon. Yeah.
Yeah, and he just kind of cast all comics in it. And it's not necessarily, it is a funny movie, but it's not like it's not funny on the page necessarily. But he just
Yeah.
wanted to bring that energy to it. So you have people like Joel McHale and Alan Havey and a bunch of other people who are just like not known for their dramatic chops,
Right.
but there were even though they're not saying particularly funny things, there is kind of like this energy that's brought to it.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm comfortable with. I mean, honestly, the what was on the page, there was definitely more jokes than what made it into the film because that's part of the process of like once you get in there, like that first scene with Jim Rash,
Yeah.
like we there was so many jokes that we just played with so much, and
Yeah.
I loved it, and it hurt me so much to cut a bunch of them, but like you know, I think rightly so. The producers are like very funny, but like we got to get this show wrote, we got to get it moving, and it's better to keep it you know faster than it is.
Yeah.
But you know that's what I'm comfortable with. I am always gonna do a treacle cutter anytime there is anything that is too serious or dramatic. I am of course you know, it's my comfort zone to make a joke, and that's my reality. So I
Yeah.
wanted to inject that into the film, and also like I think those things are not mutually exclusive. Like anytime I see anything that's like drama with a capital D when there's no levity, I'm like, what fucking world is this? Where does
Right.
it exist?
Right.
Like some of the hardest times I've laughed has been like at a funeral, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
so I feel like that is what is it, the Hannah Gatsby Nanette thing? It's like, you know, build up and pressure and release. And you need
Yeah.
that. It's either like catharsis with tears or laughter. And to me, I just wanted to have that comedic energy throughout because I feel like those are my friends. Those are my peers. There's always going to be some sort of razzing, even in the darkest of times, because that's how you like show like it's okay. We're gonna
Yeah.
get through this. We're gonna move on. This is
Yeah.
life. We continue. So
Yeah.
yeah, this is important to me just to keep that energy. But yes, I had Damon, all those guys, I let them play. If they had ideas, please make me look better. I love it.
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, and you talked a little bit too about like, you know, balancing that, making you look better. This is your first time directing. You're kind of stepping out from like the writer's room, and you've obviously worked on, big productions, great TV shows, Community, huge hit, The Goldbergs, big hit. But now you're in the director's chair.
Mhm.
What was this experience like for you? Just your first time doing it? I assume you might have had some jitters, but now that the film is done and it's about to come out this weekend, how are you looking back on it now? That first directing experience.
Um, you know, I think a fear of mine was like the entire time, just like uh, people pulling back the curtain and seeing that Oz is just some schmuck from Kansas.
Yeah.
So I was worried about being exposed as a hack and a con man. So subsequently, I prepared a bunch,
Yeah.
um, and I think that helped a lot. And I also think, I mean, again, I know I've already said not to harp on it, but the actors just were so collaborative and made it so much easier. And I just also, you know, I think 90% of directing is pointing and making decisions. So I just pointed a bunch and then also just hired people that I really trusted. The production designer, this woman, Jen Dunlap, was an old friend. So I trusted her implicitly, had an amazing DP, Felipe. And so just trusted him. And if they all brought ideas to the table and empowered them as much as possible. And, obviously sometimes we're like, great idea. That's not what we're doing. But most of the time, they were just so excited, and it was not, our budget was not such that people were just taking this for lining their pockets. They were doing it because they wanted to.
Yeah.
So I knew that if everybody's doing it because they wanted to, so let's make it as pleasant as a process as possible. Let's let everybody get their fingers on it so they all feel like they have ownership and autonomy. Because the projects that I've worked on television wise or whatever, or features, whatever,
Yeah.
when I feel like when I have the most ownership of it, that's when you care the most, and that's when you bring your passion to it the most. So that was kind of the goal. And then, the things I was worried about really weren't that bad. And the things that I was not worried about ended up being a kick in the pants. So
Yeah.
never what you expect, really.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I have to ask you this before I let you go. I know music was like a big part of the movie, and you have Zoe singing a song during it, but I have to talk to you about the impromptu song that Damon comes up with, which I I think I heard it during the credits that you guys like produced an actual version of that song. How did that come together? One, it is a really catchy song, and two, it's like it sort of seems that he does pull it out of thin air. Did he do that on the spot, or?
I mean, it was written.
Yeah.
I wrote the lyrics down,
Yeah.
and when we rehearsed it, he just kind of did a thing, and he's like, "Is that kind of what you want?" I was like, "Yeah, do that and go further with it."
Yeah.
So it was kind of that, and then when we finally like locked in the score, which was like an arduous process because there's just a lot of people cared about the movie and we just wanted to get it right. So
Yeah.
once we finally locked in the score, like on the side, I said to our composer, Lauren Kolchak, who's amazing,
Yeah.
like, if you've got like an extra day, I'd really love for the credits. Let's actually make that song rather. And she
Yeah.
just made like the best like 90s like slow jam. It's just such a banger, and it's just I remember as soon as it was done, I sent it to texted it to Finn and Zoe, and
Yeah.
Finn was like, "What? How is this not on the radio right now?"
Yeah.
And it, like I always love those things that just like little Easter eggs, and it's again like speaks to, because the movie kind of ends on this, I think very hopeful element, a hopeful and kind of magical element, but it's also there's a lot of feelings and drama in there.
Yeah.
Um, and I love that, but I also at the end of it wanted to be like, but it's still fun and silly. We're still playing make 'em ups, and that's
Yeah.
what a dream that. I mean, how lucky am I that I get to tell stories for a living?
Yeah.
That's fucking magic. So but to not take it too seriously, and let's finish off with Flip Flop Summer Love.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and I saw you tweet about it. You talked about like being lucky. I saw you talk about working with people that you're lucky to work with and lucky that the film got made. But I mean, honestly, just to tell you, I think it's, really fantastic, romantic, a lot of fun. And I hope a lot of people go see it, because I think we need more movies like this, especially during, these pandemic times. And hopefully it leads to way more movies for you. It's
I mean,
awesome.
that would be, I mean, that would be a dream. The goal is hopefully that this is, entree into another world a
Yeah.
little bit, or I get the opportunity to do this another time. But if this is a one and done for me, I'm thrilled that I think it is a movie that speaks to my spirit of just like a little bit silly, a little bit emo, but
Yeah.
like optimistic. And I do think fortuitously, even though it's a weird time to launch a movie, it's kind of the best time because initially this was just about Bart going through stuff and then Vienna separately going through stuff and how they help each other out. But now, like collectively, societally, we're all like, shit, we have been through it. So everybody wants to be like, oh God, we just all need a vacation. And that's, in part why that movie is called Long Weekend, because these are two people yearning for a break, for a vacation. And fuck, do we all need that right now?
Yeah. definitely.
So.
Steve, thanks so much for talking with me today. I think it's been great.
Man, it was such a pleasure. Seriously.
Yeah, really appreciate it. And yeah, take care. Enjoy the rest of the week.
Hey, man, I hope that 50 degrees turns into 60 years real fast.
Yeah, we got to keep it going. We got to keep it going.
Break out those flip-flops real soon, man.
All right.
Flip-flops, summer love.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, Steve.
Dude,
Thanks again.
I appreciate it, man. Take care.
Yeah, bye-bye.